Good morning, evening, or afternoon, everybody. It is me, your boy TPT, coming at you, not live and not from Twitch TV. I hope you all having a fantastic day today. I have definitely been. I mean, the support on the You Aren't the Fan Base video has just been absolutely fucking insane. 24,000 views. That honestly just blows my mind, you know? I only hit 300 subs 2 days ago. I'm already at 348. It's fucking crazy, and I love you guys. Honestly, I still can't believe it. Anyway, can't let the power go to my head just yet. I think I need to hit about 1,000 subscribers before I'm allowed to start ego tripping properly. But I decided to. I've been thinking about this for a little while. It was before the You Aren't the Fanbase video. I wanted to remake an older video of mine, which is the Interesting Study Countries video, because I was like 14, I think, when I made that, and I was a real basic bitch, you know. I picked like England, France, Ottomans, and that, and those aren't interesting. They're just big countries. I basically just read off the recommended countries list. Now, I will be including one of those in this video, but that is because of personal preference, alright? Just because I fucking love playing one particular country. So, with that being said, I will instead be actually choosing some, not necessarily less unheard of, but definitely actually interesting starts. And if you haven't guessed, the first one we'll be talking about is Jianzhou. Starts off in Manchuria, located just above the Ming Dynasty. It does start as a tributary under the Ming, and it is one of the best countries which you can use to form Manchu, and obviously the Qing Dynasty as well. I definitely did enjoy playing as Jianzhou. Now, it is a horde, which I'm not really a huge fan of. I have a very distinct distaste for hordes. But luckily, once you get to the Qing Dynasty, after you've gone Manchu, it does obviously become a kingdom instead. Because again, I'm just not really a huge fan of hordes, but this particular one is quite enjoyable. And it starts off in a very solid position. You've got all this beautiful land. You're under Ming, so no one else except for these two can really afford to attack you. And you obviously start off stronger than Jianzhou. And with Korea, you start off with a truce for about 5 years. My advice is just eating the rest of the people up here before then going in on Korea. And starting to look in China afterwards. It's just a very interesting country to play as. Again, I quite enjoy it. Definitely does offer you a solid experience. Again, once you get the Qing Dynasty in that, you really start getting some very, very entertaining gameplay. Some very entertaining mechanics. Obviously, you can pick up the Emperor of China, which has some very strong bonuses, as you can probably guess here. You know, you've also got this too. You know, one of my personal favorites, +1 monarch administrative skill. Not great in multiplayer, sure, but in single player, that's very handy to have. But yeah, so I do thoroughly enjoy playing as them. Now, on to the next country, which is Oda. Now, if you don't know Oda, first of all, it is the country that did go on to form Japan. It's this tiny little thing right here. It's a little one province minor. Very nice red color, I might add. Some very beautiful ideas. You know, 10% morale, well, 10% infantry combat. Getting some tech costs, some goods produced, core creation cost. There's some very, very strong bonuses. You get 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 leader pips in the ideas. Obviously, it is a little bit of a rough start. You only start off with the 1 province. You know, you got 3k. Not wonderful, sure. But obviously, once you get rolling, it can be very powerful indeed. And it is also one of my favorite countries to form Japan as. Plus, I mean, come on, look at that red. Look at that beautiful red there. Tell me that's not a beautiful red. But anyway, moving on to our next candidate, we head on over to the recently updated Indochina region to Dai Viet. You know, I'm not gonna say Khmer or Ataya or one of the stateless societies because I'm not a bitch. Stateless societies are annoying as hell to play. They're not interesting. They're just painful. All right, they're definitely unique. I'll give them that, but they're painful as hell, and I would never recommend someone to put themselves through that sort of torture. All right. So first of all, they do start off with the command of the military state privilege. Which gives them, you know, more expensive leaders and such, as well as giving increased influence whenever they recruit a general, in return for just some extra army tradition and a bunch of nobility influence. It's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a rough estate privilege. You know, I definitely don't think it's a good one. I think it's definitely a negative one, and that's the intention of it. Yeah, see, there it is. And it does cost crown land as well, which is why they only start off with 19.98% crown land. So you really got to slap that button as soon as possible on them. But they start off in, you know, not the easiest location. They've got Ming to the north. They have Lanzhong to the west and Champa to the south, with the ocean to the east in the Gulf of Tonkin. Typically, you'll normally start off by eating your way down through into Champa. You know, obviously taking out those stateless societies I mentioned earlier, and going on to form quite a respectable Indo-Chinese continent. Their ideas are decent, you know, they do have some manpower, some infantry combat ability, some morale of army, some tech cost. Definitely, you know, decent, not great necessarily. This is one that I, you know, do quite like, is the mandate growth modifier, because it's essentially, you know, it's encouraging you to eat China. Which is something you should always aim to do. China is some fat stacks right there, and I would always go for them if I had the opportunity. So it's very, very nice. And again, I do quite enjoy playing them. Bit of a weird flag. I'm not a huge fan of the color, but, you know, they are still a fun country to play as, and I would totally recommend them. Next one, this one's probably one of the more common ones, because, well, specifically because it's in India, but Mewar. Mewar is essentially the Prussia of India. You start off with some very, very solid ideas. 20% infantry cost, 10% infantry combat ability. You get war exhaustion, discipline, land fire, manpower, army tradition decay. It's a very, very strong country to play as. I would highly recommend this one for a multiplayer, in particular, because, you know, you don't start off too big. You start off with 55 development, which does typically fit in with most dev limits, and, you know, and you obviously have a lot of potential to grow as well. You got lots of little provinces which you can eat up. You have some marginally bigger countries around you. You do start off Hindu as well, which is quite convenient, because obviously, you know, all of this land is Hindu, so there's plenty of religious opportunity there. And yeah, also obviously you can go on to form Bharat, and one of my favorite military-wise reformables, which is the Rajputs, as the Rajputs get some very, very powerful estate modifiers, and I would always recommend forming them if you can. So, onto one of my personal favorites, which is Ardabil. It's a small one-province minor Shia Persian. Well, technically, it's I think it's, yeah, Azerbaijani, which is Iranian, but Iranian is Persian. You know, it's modern day Persia. Yeah, one province minor. It does have a achievement associated with it, which is Shahanshah. It was one of my first serious achievements that I got. Not that long ago, actually, to be honest. You can go two directions. You can go, obviously, down the Mughal route or the Persian route. You need to go, obviously, Persia for the Shahanshah achievement. But Mughal is definitely an interesting route. Although, obviously, it takes a lot longer because you got to get all the way over to Delhi in order to be able to achieve that one. But they do start off in a surprisingly good province. You know, 9 dev with dies, and it's a mountain fort as well, which is very important early on. As in particular, when I played, QQ obviously does start off with a domineering attitude. That happens every time. I've never played a game where they have it. And they decked on me right away from the start, but thanks to my early mountain fort, I was able to actually win that war and eat up quite a significant chunk of their land, with the assistance of Sharan, who in this game hates. Oh, never mind. The AI rivaled them instead, not me. Yeah, I would always definitely recommend Ardabil for much harder, but definitely still a very, very enjoyable game. And once again, very, pretty strong ideas. They start with the manpower. They got the morale, some cavalry, which is meh, but 2 tons of the true faith, heretics, which is good because often you'll be giving a lot of your stuff, a lot of your heathen provinces to the Dhimmi anyway. So having 2% heretic strength is basically like just having 2% missionary strength, if you ask me. I'm a big fan. And yeah, I also quite like their green color. It's a bit of a darker green color. I'm not really a fan of like an Ottoman green, but an Ardabil. If Ottoman green was Ardabil green, 100% would have my stamp of approval on it. So moving on to the next one is down in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, which is Yemen. Yemen starts off in a pretty interesting situation, of course. They do have some very nice bonuses. They start off with the Coffee Arabica bonus, which gives them quite a little boost to their income. So you're making about 3 ducats a month as a 3-province minor, which is definitely, well, it's about 2 ducats a month technically because of the maintenance. But that's quite a respectable amount of money as a 3-province minor, and you also have a significant amount of cores which you can conquer back off of your neighbors. So you got about, what's that, about 6 provinces worth of cores, if I recall correctly, which gives you obviously a very strong start in the Gulf of Aden, which is a very, very potent trade node, particularly if you start expanding over this direction, or also, you can obviously take a chunk out of Ethiopia. And it's just a very, very solid starting economy for its size. Some easy casus bellis on neighboring lands. If I didn't recommend Yemen, my backup would probably be Rassids. They're a very solid multiplayer idea group focused nation. They have quite a few good ones, as you can see here. Morale, ICA, manpower, shock damage, very, very solid ideas. So that would probably be my backup recommendation in Saudi Arabia if you aren't a Yemen fan. But we head on over to Africa next. It's the one I always can't remember, which is Butua. Butua looks in a deceivingly weak position. You do start off with a gold mine first of all, though, I will say, which is great for your economy, not so much for your inflation though. A little cheeky 0.3 inflation per year there, but thankfully, obviously, you do have the strict gold trade regulations, which is yearly inflation reduction. Plus, you can pick up some early economic ideas to just obviously keep it in check, as you'll be getting quite a significant amount of trade income down here in the early point. You also start off right next to the City of Kami Great project, which has some pretty nice benefits, obviously. The tech cost, local defensiveness, and cost to fabricate claims. And it's a gold mine too, which is very, very sexy. Typically, you'll start off by getting a support independence from Kilwa, and you can pretty much just almost deck that straight up. You can sometimes grab it from one of these guys as well. Yep, see, that one would go for it here. And that will also greatly assist you in butchering the Mutapans. Just take as much land as physically possible off them in the very first war, and just continue to clean up slowly afterwards. Yeah, I would 100% recommend playing as Butua if you like. There's an achievement for it. It's a very easy one. I believe I've gotten it already. But it's quite a fun little start, and it gives you a very, very strong base economy, although obviously you do have to be very careful of inflation, as there is a lot of gold down here. But hey, nothing wrong with a little bit of gold. So we move on into Central West Africa now, to Songhai. I myself have played this in multiplayers before. It's quite a fun one. You do obviously start off with some reasonably large neighbors, of which some like you, some very clearly don't. but plenty of expansion pathways. You do start off as Sunni too, so you get access to the Dhimmi estate, which is very useful for eating up all of this fetishist land. It really does wonders. You know, that's why I definitely recommend starting Sunni over fetishist down here, as it's definitely the stronger religion. You do start off with a decent economy too, if you have a look-see there. You know, it's not too bad, but obviously you can expand it quite quickly. Plus, you don't really tend to need the fort, which is a little bit of a boost right there as well. And you can generally tend to conquer this entire area pretty quickly and start looking to expand, you know, into the Cape, into the Horn, you know, or, you know, maybe heading over to the New World to say hello to Brazil, possibly, in fact. So definitely a very fun country to play as there. I do thoroughly enjoy it. And I reckon you guys would too. We'll head on over to the New World. I'm only going to pick one in the New World for now, and I don't really think it's too much of a surprise, but it is the one that I played the Sun God achievement on, which is Cusco. Would most likely, I would definitely say it's probably the strongest start in the South America, at least. Probably one of the strongest starts in compared to a lot of the North Americans too, as you do start off with a very nice gold mine. Although Native Americans do get reduced benefits from gold mines, unfortunately, until you're able to reform your country. That is just, you know, it's a bit unfortunate, but once you do get reformment, obviously you'll have access to quite a number of very, very, very delicious gold mines, as you can see here. You get that, you know, that Cerro Rico. That's a lot of money once you reform off of that, and you can really just start to smash out the rest of these provinces, start pushing away those filthy European imperialists as well. We will be heading on over to Europe next, and I'm going to give you a second to guess which country I'm going to be recommending over here first. Just give you a second. No, it's not Byzantium. No, because Byzantium's a basic bitch country to recommend. Although, to be fair, I do love playing as Byzantium, but it's also not the basic bitch one that I'm going to be recommending either. It is, in fact, the lovely Peasants' Republic of Dithmarschen. It starts in a little bit of a precarious position, obviously, surrounded, you know, it's bordered by Denmark and the Hanseatic Trade League, so you do have to be careful of that one. If you guys don't remember, I did play a campaign of Dithmarschen just prior to the Leviathan launch. It is one of the only, I believe it is like the only country in the world to at least begin as a peasant republic. Obviously, the stateless societies, if they do survive, they automatically reform into a peasants republic, but I believe Dithmarschen is the only one that actually starts off as it. And it does actually have some very surprisingly nice bonuses. First of all, you have the production efficiency and the morale of armies. I'm actually quite a big fan of that, as a matter of fact. Just give it a second. I don't know why it's not working properly. But yeah, so you do have some very, very powerful missions. In particular, down here, when you get to these three, Conquest of Bread gives you a permanent 20% goods produced modifier, which is, as I've said before in previous videos, one of the strongest economic modifiers in the game. Break the Chains also gives you a permanent plus 5% administrative efficiency. And the Peasants' War gives you network, spy network construction, and no one really cares about rebel support efficiency. However, I did actually take espionage ideas in my Dithmarschen campaign, so I think I was pushing about 100% rebel support efficiency during that, which I did actually exploit a little bit and had quite a bit of fun doing as such, just really pissing off the AI basically. Yeah, so it is actually a pretty not a bad one to do in multiplayer, I would say. They do start off in a bit of a weak situation economically, unfortunately. You know, they do have an 8. It is 8 dev, but it's a grain province, so it's not great. The production from the Peasants' Republic does help a little bit, but unfortunately you are still going to be, you know, a bit strapped for cash during the immediate early game until you start conquering. My advice is always pay attention to who East Frisia allies. In this case, there's no way in hell you're going to be getting that one, so I would actually probably look at someone like Oldenburg instead, except he's allied to Burgundy, and Verdun would probably end up being your ideal target, actually. Wow, this would be a rough Dithmarschen start, if you ask me. And the last, no, I've got one more, actually, before the last one. You might have noticed it over there. It's a little green blob. It's a releasable from Lithuania by the name of Smolensk. It is a very powerful late-game country, as, I mean, just look at this right here. Land fire damage, artillery cost, land leader fire, artillery combat ability, siege ability, and 15% advisor cost. I mean, look, let's just say it's got a cannon on the flag for a reason. This country gets very powerful in the later game, especially if you start combining that with quality or something. You know, it just gets pretty crazy, pretty quickly once you start hitting those, mid to late 1600s. And obviously it also starts off with Orthodox, which is probably the best religion in the game. Give me that 5% discipline. But yeah, so again, it does start off in a little bit of a rough position. Surrounded by the likes of Muscovy and Lithuania. You do have a couple expansion paths, though. Luckily, my advice would be to, look around for if anybody's willing to support your independence. Often you can sometimes get the Muscovites to support the independence if you ask them very nicely. Or, you just start looking at who else has them rivaled. But you do definitely want to escape before Poland gets the PU, otherwise your fight for survival is going to get a lot more difficult. And we come to the final recommendation. This one is definitely a very basic bitch recommendation, but it is also a personal favorite of mine, which is, of course, England. I have enjoyed playing England since I started this game. It was my second campaign that I ever played. The first one was actually as Venice. Did not end well, as I'm sure you can imagine, but my second ever campaign was on England, and I have loved them ever since. I just really enjoy playing as England. They start off in a solid position. They have a very beautiful sized mission tree, as you can imagine. So very strong ideas, both early on as England, and also when they get into Great Britain, they also have some very nice ideas. They do start off with a bit of a rough king and a looming disaster. Where is it? Yeah, see, and a looming disaster. But however, that looming disaster does obviously get rid of their king, and typically gives them a much better one. Plus, you do also have a little bit of time before the disaster fires to eat up a bit of Ireland and such. I actually got very lucky in my England run, though. I got a special event which gave me a 3-4-3 ruler. I did end up losing her, unfortunately, to the War of the Roses. However, I got a equally as good monarch in return. But it meant that I was able to eat up pretty much the entirety of Ireland, except for about, I think, 2 provinces, prior to the War of the Roses firing. So anyway, guys, this has been my interesting countries in EU4. I know we finished off a little bit basic bitch, but I do hope you guys appreciate the other ones. Ardabil, Yemen, and my boy Mewar as well. Definitely some exciting choices there. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. Obviously, be sure to do whatever the hell you want. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Keep getting me on that Twitch grind. Gained so many subscribers in the past month. I think, God, I'm not actually sure how many I've gained exactly. I think it's around 100 or so in the past 30 days. Of which about 50 of those have been since I released. Probably more, actually. Probably about 60 to 70 have been since I released the particular video. Yeah, and no, I've been having a blast. Just looking at that, Obviously, try not to let it go to my head. I'm kidding. I've still got about about 700 subs to go before I can start ego tripping. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.